great pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for coming on a Friday night when after a hard week you probably have thought of doing other things. It's great you're here to listen to our presentation of the Convert Report, Narratives of Conversion to Islam in Britain, which is this one, and actually it's downloadable on the website of Cambridge University. And it's great to be back here at City Circle. We have an illustrious panel. Professor Suleiman, who was the chair and project leader of the report. For the first time ever has there been an investigation in the plight of female converts in Britain, and the report is the result of it, and Professor Suleiman was the chair and project leader. We have Anissa Kisson, filmmaker and healer, and a dear friend, and Dr. Jay Santi Ananthan. That's right. She works as a doctor in East London. So I'd like to give you a little overview first of all before we move over to the panel, and then most importantly we want your views and your comments and your feedback and lively discussion. We want to hear from you as well. As you probably know, conversion to Islam has been deemed a phenomenon fraught with suspicion by the media in recent years. Ever since Faith Matters findings were revealed a few years ago, which showed that about 5,000 British people become Muslim every year. Despite Islam's reputation that it is oppressive to women, 75% of all converts happen to be women. And they convert for conviction and not for convenience. Most of them are middle class, educated, and convert really because it's a choice for them and not a convenience for marriage or fit in peer pressure or something like that. Now, despite the recent surge in female conversions to Islam in the West, the figures are similar in Europe. Reconverts, or reverts, however you like to call us, new Muslims, remain a minority within a minority. And quite a number of new converts end up leaving the faith again because they simply cannot cope with the challenges that they are met once they are Muslim, from all sides, from the mainstream society as well as from Muslims. Until now, no one really has studied the many issues and struggles faced by a growing number of female converts to Islam in British society. That is why this report is of such great importance. It was really quite a wonderful series of sessions that we had in Cambridge. We met over a series of weekends, 22, 30, 40 converts, and poured out our heart and soul about our issues and everything else. And we realized we're not alone. Everybody is almost in a similar situation. We all face similar issues as British converts to Islam, and we met a lot of kindred spirits, which really was a nice experience. Now, some of those issues are basically the impact of adapting Islam, the most misunderstood and vilified religion in the West, is huge. No one can prepare for the changes. These changes affect every aspect of a convert's life. The way we eat, the way we dress, the way we socialize, no more flirting and casual mixing, to also family relations, which often become strained for converts. Feelings of rejection and loneliness are common as we leave our old social circle behind to be met with a general lack of support from the Muslim community, where we don't necessarily find a lasting replacement for the friends we may have lost. Muslim communities are divided by ethnicity. So where do we fit in? With the Bangladeshi crowd, with the Pakistani lot, with the Turkish people, with the Shia, with the Sunnis? Where do we fit in? The Arabs, it's not very easy. Now, also born Muslims consider white female converts as sort of trophy assets. They take pride of place on the mantelpiece, but they're not touched, and they certainly would not be considered for marriage because perhaps they've had a past They are considered, as whatever, women with a past, and married men often consider us as easy prey. So that's the other problem, not as necessary, again, not as, not for marriage. Now, Afro-Caribbean converts face outright racism in the Muslim community and exclusion from the general Muslim community. One of the most shocking revelations of the Cambridge sessions. Conversion to Islam is not for the faint-hearted. This was a common theme that ran throughout the sessions. Becoming a Muslim also can affect our career prospects. In my case, I was an award-winning TV presenter, interviewing rock stars for a living, and when it came out in Germany that I'm a Muslim, I lost all my programs, all my shows, and almost felt like that I became public enemy number one from being this pop icon. And I never really got back on German television. A media campaign was hounding me. They were saying, oh, has she lost the plot? Is she now supporting terrorism? Will she be presenting a show from behind the burqa? And, and I was out. And it really was a fact of Islamophobia ended my entertainment career. Practically overnight, my crime had been that I became a Muslim. That was it, not much else had changed. So this was in Germany, and of course it's not quite as bad here, but there is also some degree of Islamophobia. Nowadays, a lot of people get attacked on Twitter. We feel it when we mix and mingle sometimes with the mainstream society. I had these tweets just last week saying, oh, she still goes to elite parties and champagne Islamist. I said, how dare you? I've given up alcohol, so many years ago. And what is the elite not for Muslims? I'm sorry, why one gets attacked for hanging out with the mainstream, one gets attacked for this, that, from all sides, and it's just not fair. So it's a precarious situation one finds oneself in as a convert. And anyway, in the mainstream society, when I did go to one dinner the other day, why are you wearing long, and come on, just have some alcohol, and just tonight, and all this kind of stuff. So it's a challenge. Marriage, divorce, polygamy, all these things are another minefield. I've been there myself and written about most of those issues in my book, by the way, which is there at the back, From MTV to Mecca. Seems like I've lived and felt most of the issues that all of us converts deal with. Now, I wrote this book also to promote a better understanding and to help build bridges between Islam and the West. Now, naturally, as Western Muslims, all of us here, we do have some kind of a bridging function. So we have to mix and mingle with both the Muslim community as well as the mainstream. And it's important to note that also as new Muslims, we adopt a new religion, but not necessarily a new culture. We are still our old culture, and we're just Muslims now, and we remain, in my case, German, British, and so on. Now, in fact, most of the sisters in the symposium do their bit to change nowadays the image of Islam, and we all try and do our bit, try and do something positive, in the mainstream society. Now, having mentioned some of the challenges we face as converts, I think most of us agree that despite everything, we would never go back. The ones where the faith has really been rooted deeply, we would never want to go back to our old empty lives, so to say. And just the realization, the doctrine of Tawheed, the oneness of God, is illuminating. The emphasis on the balance between the spiritual and the worldly is a lifesaver. Once you've tasted it and you've really rooted deeply in it, I think despite it all, you hold on to it because it's everything. It's just our way of life now. The 5 daily prayers, the fasting in Ramadan, generally living according to the principles of Islam promotes this inner awareness and constant dialogue with God that we wouldn't want to give up again. So walking the spiritual path has a positively transformative effect on the character, and it promotes inner contentment and certainty despite the challenges, and perhaps helps us also through those challenges, of course. Now, one great aspect about this report is also that there's an extensive list of recommendations at the back of how we can do things better, how we can promote a British culture of Islam. Converts and reverts definitely need to play a greater role in the establishment of Islam in Britain. We need support, legal, intercultural and spiritual guidance for marriage and divorce and family relations. And in general, we need to be able to learn about Islam without cultural baggage, more social networking opportunities and a better integration into the Muslim heritage community would also be very nice. So any Eid parties, any iftars, think of us, we're longing to be with you, and often, we don't have anywhere to go if we didn't convert for marriage. So also it would of course help if the sermons in mosques, I hope some imams are here, would be held in English as well as in another language, because we don't speak Urdu, we also don't speak Arabic. So these are just some of my thoughts on this report and on these issues. I'd now like to hand over to the leader of the project, Professor Yasser Suleiman. He's the director of the Center of Islamic Studies, His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said, Professor of Modern Arabic Studies and a Fellow of King's College, Cambridge. In 2013, Professor Suleiman was elected as chairman of the International Prize of Arabic Fiction, known as the Arabic Booker. He serves as trustee on the board of the Arab-British Chamber Charitable Foundation and the Banipal Trust of Arab Literature, and he's also trustee of the Gulf Research Centre, Cambridge. Professor Suleiman is also a member of the advisory board of Our Shared Future, a joint project of the British Council, the United States, and the Carnegie Foundation. He authored numerous reports, including Contextualizing Islam in Britain No. 2, which he co-wrote with Dr. Jeremy Handel-Thomas. Now, of course, this is just a small summary of his accolades, but let me also mention that Professor Suleiman is the commander of the Order of the British Empire. Please give a warm welcome.
Well, thank you, Christiane. Thank you, Christiane, for this handsome and generous introduction. I am delighted to be here with you today to talk about the report that was based on a project in Cambridge. We did this report in association with the New Muslim Project in Barclays in Leicester. I was the project leader. I did not write the report. Nobody wrote the report, by the way. Nobody can claim authorship of this report. This report belongs to the 50 ladies who took part in the 3 symposia, and we had a day and a half before that, 7.5 days of intensive, extensive meetings. So Christiane is also an author of the report. And the names of those ladies are here in the report. 2 ladies decided not to allow us to include their names. The reason for it is that they did not agree with everything in the report, which is quite an interesting thing, because the report, in fact, disagrees with itself. There are lots of disagreements inside the report. There are lots of different views inside the report, and that was not through accident, but by design. I don't know whether Anne Coxon is here or not. She's not, unfortunately. Yeah, she's in America. When we sent a draft of the report for our participants to tell us what they think of it, she wrote back to me and she said, "Yasser, thank you for not tidying us up." And the report does not tidy up the conversion experience. It just lets it flow. You'll have one paragraph that says something, and there will be another paragraph next to it or before it, that after it or before it, that might put a different nuance on what the paragraph says. Now, the report was launched in London on the 16th of May this year. Since the 16th of May, the report has been downloaded until 4 o'clock today 67,394 times. Now, this tells me that there is a lot of interest, not just in this report, but in the phenomenon of conversion to Islam. And I would like to begin with this. So, although conversion has been talked about, and I've certainly come here with my wife Shahla Suleiman, who was the project leader, although we've come here in the past and attended one talk on conversion, there is quite a continued interest in this particular topic. And most recently, the interest has been driven, as far as women are concerned, with the security agenda as a result of the tragic events that took place in Boston. We know that the wife of one of the perpetrators of that crime was a convert to Islam, and recently also in connection with the atrocities that took place in Kenya. So there's quite a lot of interest in this particular topic. Yes, of course, that's right. Lee Rigby, indeed, yeah. So you could say, well, a lot also has been, actually, quite a bit has been written on this topic, so why do it again? Well, I think if we were to ask the same question of Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and also cornflakes, they keep talking about the same product, although the products themselves don't need to be, as it were, discussed or talked about. Now, we're not talking about a product, we're talking about a fantastic experience that is not for the faint-hearted, as Christiane has told us, but we think it's important to keep this particular issue in the public domain and for people to discuss it all the time. Now, we wanted to do something different, and we have done it differently in the sense that people who have done research on this particular topic, they will contact people individually, phone people, talk to 1 or 2 people. In our case, every single meeting would have something like 25 to 30 female converts to Islam in Britain coming together and debating the issues, talking about their experiences over 2 days. So in total, we had about 50 ladies who came over the 3 weekends, including the 1.5-day proof of concept meetings that took place in advance. So the report is different in the sense that it brought a large number of people, ladies who converted to Islam, to one place to talk amongst themselves. And the conversation was recorded and the report was compiled. Now, the people who came to it came from a variety of ethnic and faith backgrounds. There were Catholics, there were Protestants, there were Christian, there were Jews, there were Buddhists, there were people who believed in other faiths, but also people with no faith. And this was also a Muslim lady who left Islam and came back to Islam and considered herself, as it were, a convert back into Islam, almost like a born-again Muslim. So the experience of conversion, who identifies as a convert in Britain, shows that people come to Islam from a variety of perspectives. And each conversion experience is individual, is personal, and it should be treated that way, with the respect and the interest it deserves. Now, we also tried in our report to have younger people, older people. We tried to have people from a variety of geographical backgrounds, so we had people from Scotland, people from Wales, and different parts of England, to try to get some sort of different perspectives on the conversion experience. So we have tried to be as broad as we possibly can within the money that was available to us to do this report. Now, I think Christiane has started by hinting at the question that we asked ourselves. The question was, in spite of the very bad sort of press and media reporting on Islam, particularly when it comes to women, still women are converting to Islam. There's almost like a paradox. Why is it that something which is paraded in the public sphere as in negative terms, more than negative terms, is still drawing women into Islam when in fact Islam is giving bad press, particularly in the way it is constructed to treat women. I was trying to somehow approach this by looking at epithets, at descriptions of Islam that you would find in the media, and luckily for me, I happened to find an article by my friend Jeremy Ansel-Thomas, who himself is a convert to Islam, where he surveyed the media and gave me a list of words, correlations with Islam. If you put into the Google, say Islam correlates with, it will start to give you lots of terms that correlate with Islam. And see, these are some of the things that a convert woman to Islam will have to face when she converts to that faith. So Islam is seen as fundamentalist, ideological, monolithic, static, unidimensional. And please, if you if you read yourself in any of those things, just put your hand up, just tell me that I know that they apply to you. Implacably opposed to modernity, incapable of integration or assimilation, impervious to new ideas, retrogressive, retrograde, backward, archaic, primeval, medieval, uncivilized, hostile, violent, terrorist, alien, fanatical, barbaric, militant, oppressive, harsh, threatening, confrontational, extremist, authoritarian, totalitarian, patriarchal, misogynist, negatively exotic, and bent on imposing on the whole world a rigid theocratical system of government. So if you are interested, this is who you are. This is what the world outside thinks of Muslims. And it does also think of converts in a sort of related to this. Why would a liberal-minded, very highly intelligent, educated, a media person who had accolades of prizes, why would she want to become a Muslim? Who wants to become a Muslim once you see this? If you go into a supermarket and you take something and all these things are written on it, you certainly are not going to part with your money in order to, certainly you wouldn't do that. Maybe you'd do out of interest, and if you had an excess of cash on you and you didn't have ways of spending it. So what we wanted to do is to try to get into the experience of conversion to Islam from that perspective. Now, as I said, every conversion experience is a story in its own right. That was very clear in King. And every story relates to a person, relates to a time, relates to a place, relates to a network of people. It doesn't take place in vacuum. Conversion doesn't take place in vacuum. And you can't date conversions. You can't say, I've converted. Maybe in terms of certification, you could say, my certificate says I took my shahada on that day. But conversion is a journey. What is interesting, of course, is that through our report, all these journeys, they intersect. And there is something in common amongst all those personal, specific, historically situated, geographically situated journeys. And I think the main journey, so the main conversion line, the line that we describe as a continuum, there's continuity in conversion, is the search for a spiritual way of life. And all the converts are really searching for a spiritual way of life, to give their lives a meaning that goes beyond the banalities of our modern world, the objectification of our modern world, the commodification of our modern world. So there is that sort of element of spirituality, and that brings, I think, to my mind, all converts into that journey together. They come from different points, but then at some point they sort of meet and travel together, and the journey that unites them is the search for spiritual meaning to their lives, which actually generally starts way before they realize that they are heading towards a target that is Islam, and continues as they also go into Islam. It's a journey that never really stops. And that was the beauty of us listening to those conversion experiences. Now, what I'd like to do is to raise a few points. I'm not going to go into them with any depth, because I think they will be raised, I hope, in the question and answer session. What I want to talk about is something which we did not perhaps bring into the report, because I'm hoping that you'll be able to visit the website of the Center of Islamic Studies and download it for free. Is how is the conversion experience received? Now, Christian alluded to how the conversion experience is received. It seems to be received in a variety of ways. If you're a white Muslim, if you're a white lady converting to Islam, as Christian has said, you will be treated as a trophy, and there will be a mantelpiece for you on which you can sit at home and be displayed in a Muslim household. So white women are trophies. They're seen as a validation of almost Islam. Those ladies wouldn't have converted to Islam if there wasn't something intrinsically good about Islam, intrinsically of value in Islam. And that is a statement about how Muslims really see themselves. This sort of desire for some validation, in spite of all the rhetoric of self-confidence that you hear when we meet together and talk to each other. And as also Christian has said, if you are a lady from, say, the Indian subcontinent and convert to Islam, or because actually non-Muslims might most of the time think of Cambridge Symposium said, for me, well, I'm not a trophy and there's no mantelpiece. And we came back to that, and that was really the hardest part of that experience for me. That the conversion experience amongst Muslims is color sensitive. And the lighter your color, the more welcome almost, or the more recognized your experience is. And that is one of the findings that we had in our report. Now, again, I'm not saying that this applies in all cases. And I'm saying that it applies to the people that we have talked to. Maybe other people will say, well, no, my experience is different from this. And I would accept that. Now, converts, I would call them, are seen as sort of kind of intimate strangers. They're intimate strangers when they look back. They don't look back, actually, when they relate themselves to their old social networks. Somehow, something unrecognizable creeps in and makes them sort of a little bit of, they become a little bit of kind of strangers to their own social networks in the past, like, for example, parents, it could be friends, it could be acquaintances, it could be work sort of colleagues, and but at the same time, they're not totally sort of alien. And I would say that even amongst Muslims, they continue for cultural reasons, not for theological reasons. They are almost like intimate strangers, and some Muslims, some converts feel that heritage Muslims might look at them as people who are sort of shopping for religion. Today they're in Islam, tomorrow they'll just move on and think about something different. I don't know whether this is actually the case in a widespread fashion or not. So the idea of intimate strangers. And as intimate strangers, they are treated with polite indifference and sometimes with benign neglect. What does polite indifference mean? In our post-project and report research, we talked to parents of converts, and we said, what do you think of the conversion of your daughter? They'll say, well, she's fine, she can do whatever she wants, but then they will whisper in your ear, what she has done is silly, it's backward. Why couldn't she just choose something different? Did she really have to convert to Islam? Right? While at the same time, sort of being pleasant to her and say, it's your life, you can do whatever you want, that's your choice. So there is on the surface an acceptance of the conversion, but behind the scenes there's a rejection of it. And we're dealing it with this kind of polite indifference with benign neglect. And that extends to families sometimes never really asking their or friends, not asking, why did you convert? What is your experience like? And also, if they want, parents, if they want to find something about Islam, they wouldn't sort of turn to their children who've converted to Islam to tell them something about Islam. The children may sort of, on some of our research, they might say, Islam says such and such and such. But the parents will discount it and say, no. I know that Islam says something different, which is something that the media puts out. And then you could say, but no. And they say, okay, you must have joined a cuddly, lovely kind of part of Islam. This is not the Islam that we know. So there is really almost no interest from some of the social networks that the convert comes out of. And I would call this a reaction, which is based on cultural sort of relativism. You can convert, but I think what you have done is silly and almost stupid. This cultural relativism is a form of what I call bigoted liberalism. People can be liberal, and they will act in sort of and talk in liberal ways, but when it comes to their children, their friends, their brothers, sisters, or their parents converting to Islam, then that is treated with a liberalism, but it's a bigoted form of liberalism, and that has to be recognized. So if you are an intimate stranger, then Islam is going to be not a choice for the faint-hearted, because you are always standing in the middle. Now, if you're standing in the middle, you could become a bridge. But as one of the ladies in our symposia reminded us, she said, well, if you are going to be a bridge, remember, bridges can be blown up. And even if you are lucky and you're not blown up, then people will trample upon you. People will walk with their dirty feet all over you. So the bridge metaphor might not be so very helpful to a convert, because the conversion experience can lead to very muddy kind of terrain. Now, conversion is also lives in this sort of twilight zone, because what it does, it breaks the binaries of the modern and the backward, the rational and the irrational. Here you have people who were, before conversion, credited with being modern and rational, who haven't given up on being modern and rational, as Christian was telling us. But then they seem to have become irrational and also backward. They're not modern. So they're really right in the middle. And what conversion does to the old background of a convert, what it does, it brings in a marginal discourse about faith and makes it core for that social network. So your parents who in the past would have said, oh, Islam, what is Islam? Suddenly when your daughter converts to Islam, or your sister converts to Islam, or your brother perhaps converts to Islam, suddenly that Islam becomes core to you. It's no longer a marginal phenomenon. It's not something which is outside. It is right in the kitchen. It's right in the bedroom. It's right in your living room. So conversion favors, or not favors, privileges marginal discourses that are against the main trend of our modern life, where secularism is a dominant feature, and gives them a place where they ought not to be. And that privileging of marginality is something which unsettles and therefore seems to be threatening and makes you in the end become the intimate stranger that you end up with. What other themes did we deal with? I can tell you, we dealt with the hijab, of course. I mean, the hijab is always there. An absolute. I think Christian might remember, I said, oh no, I hope they will not deal with the hijab, because I was chairing all the sessions and I was the only man there. Became in the end an honorary woman, and I was very proud of becoming an honorary woman. Now, why the hijab? In fact, believe it or not, the hijab is so very important, and we need to continue to deal with it. After the report, Shahla, my wife, who sometimes helps at the center, although she has a full-time job, she came to London, to a school in London, to talk to people about Islam. And I'm going to talk about also Shanafian Muslims now, because that connects nicely to what you've said. Now, Shahla came to this school. They were, I think, 9 or 10-year-old, 5 classes of 9 and 10-year-old. She prepared lots of material. She went there to them, and she brought with her a project manager called Hattie. She's Harriet, but she calls herself Hattie. So Shahla stood in front of them and she said, am I a Muslim? No. Is Hattie a Muslim? They said, no. Why is Hattie not a Muslim? She's wearing tight clothes. Okay. Could Hattie be a Christian? No. She said, Shahla, why not? Hattie is not a posh name. It's quite an interesting one. So, Christian most likely is going to have a posh name, so others may not have a posh name. Then Shahla distributed to, I think, 100 kids a picture of men, and in the middle of it was Rowan Williams, was the Archbishop of Canterbury and president of Magdalen College in Cambridge. And she asked the students to circle any men in the picture who are Muslim. Everybody in the 5 classes circled Rowan Williams as Muslim. And then Shahla said, why is he a Muslim? They said, he has a beard. So those here with beards, you are a confirmed Muslim, you don't need to be baptized. And then he's wearing long black robe. And then Shahla said, have you noticed that little thing which is hanging down here? They looked and they said, oh, there was a cross, of course. Now, a beard and black robes can negate, can completely eliminate, can make invisible one of the biggest signs of being a Christian. So dress is very, very important, and we need to look at it. And let me just tell you that recently, I'll finish soon. Recently, I don't know if you've been following the news or not. In China, there's the big, or the beauty project or campaign. There's a beauty project. Have you heard? Yeah. I've brought something so a little bit of feeling. Now, in the Muslim areas, women are encouraged not to wear the hijab because the hijab somehow detracts from the beauty of Chinese women. And they're encouraged not to wear the hijab because Chinese women have to display their beauties. And I've seen pictures. You have a picture here. There's a lady here. And this lady here is sitting there, and if a woman is wearing the hijab, she calls her in, she just notes her details and just lets her go. So now there's an attempt to try to get at the hijab through this campaign of Project Beauty. And also recently there has been an attempt in Quebec to legislate against not just the hijab, the turban, the kippah, and everything. And it is under a project called Quebec Shared Values. And this project is seeing pictures of what kinds of dress are disallowed. And these are the dresses, these are the head covers. Sorry, these are the head covers that are disallowed. There's the hijab and there's also the burqa there. What I want to say here is this, is that the reading of the hijab is not really an Islamic reading. The hijab somehow says more about us, the interpreters of the hijab, than it says about the hijab itself. And this goes back to the 19th century. The Orientalist paradigm, in the 19th century, in Turkey, in the Ottoman Empire, women were thought to be backward if they had kept their head covering. And in order to become modern, you take it off. But remember what happened to the men. They used to have the turban. The men had to remove the turban and wear the fez to become modern. And Ataturk then said, the fez is backward. He said, remove the fez and you'll stop to be backward. So the hijab has been also imbibed by Muslims as a sign of backwardness. So the hijab somehow is attacked from all directions. The hijab generally is read from the inside, from the outside inside. Whereas for many Muslim women, the hijab is to be read from the inside outside, not the outside inside. I'll stop here because I'm sure there will be questions about that and other issues later on.
Thank you very much. And now, I think it's Dr. Shanks.
Do you have this with Jay?
Jay, thank you, that would be helpful. From Newham, East London. She's of Tamil Sri Lankan heritage. She embraced Islam 9 years ago after studying philosophy of religion, Islam and Christianity at sixth form. Dr. J went on to study nursing at City University and then medicine at the Peninsula Medical School, University of Exeter. She currently works as a doctor in Essex and resides with her mother, husband and brother in East London. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Christian. I begin in the name of God, the most merciful, the most kind. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. All praises are to God, and may His peace and mercy and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thank you everyone for coming. There are a lot of people who are standing at the back. Are there any chairs available?
There are seats in front.
I think we need to maybe get some seats for people. If our city circle friends could help us out. There are some chairs downstairs, I think. Nabil, especially, please come to the front. Assalamu alaikum everyone. As Christian said, my name is Jay, and I'd just like to say thank you to City Circle and Brother Remy for inviting me to speak today. Thank you to Professor Yasser and the team at the Centre of Islamic Studies at Cambridge for doing such valuable research. I found it very interesting, and inshallah it will be a useful tool to help reverts in the future. So, where do I start? I've been given 15 minutes, and normally whenever anyone asks me, how did you come to Islam, I say, you need to give me 2 hours and you need to buy me a coffee. So all of you owe me a coffee after this, but I'll try and give you a brief and condensed version using my bullet points. The first thing I was struck by when I read the report was how fortunate I have been in my experience, and how a lot of the sisters who took part have really struggled and suffered, and it's a testimony to their strength and their status with God that they got through such tests, and I don't know if I would have been able to bear such burdens and tests such as they did. I was very fortunate, as you'll come to see. I didn't have that many difficulties becoming a Muslim compared to other sisters. So I was born, as Christian said, to a Tamil Sri Lankan family, mainly Hindu background. I was born and brought up in East London, in Newham. I had a difficult childhood and a wonderful childhood. I had a difficult childhood because my father suffered with an addiction to alcohol. He had bipolar disorder and was consequently unemployed for most of my life. But I had a wonderful childhood because my parents were very loving, very affectionate, and they raised us with the emphasis on the right things. They taught us the difference between right and wrong, and there was a lot of laughter growing up. One of the things that I think affected me profoundly was my parents, what we call taqwa, which is an Arabic word used to describe a consciousness or an awareness of God with a mixture of fear, awe and love. And that's what my parents, despite being non-Muslims, demonstrated and picked up on that very early on in my life. So my father was more interested in Christianity. He came to England from Sri Lanka when he was 24 years old, and I think he found more solace in the church and more sense in the Bible than he did in Hinduism. My mother came to England to marry my father when she was 34 years old, and she was very much a devout Hindu, having been brought up by very religious Hindu parents. So she worshipped idols and took us to the temple, and my father took us to the church. So I grew up in churches and temples. We had a prayer room, and there would be a cupboard with Hindu idols and statues of Mary and Jesus as well. So it sounds like a very confusing, bewildering childhood. It wasn't. It was very enriching and interesting, and I liked learning about both of those religions. But it came to a point where they didn't offer me all the answers to my questions, and I didn't feel it was an adequate. It didn't provide adequate guidance for my life. And so I settled at a very early age on being agnostic. And this was around the age of 13. And at that time, very suddenly, unfortunately, my father passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. And that led to me becoming quite depressed and not really interested in life or future, or not caring much about myself or my future. But when I was 16, I was sent to an all-girls sixth form college in Chelmsford, and I didn't really care about going to university, so I just picked the subjects that interested me. I chose biology, psychology, and the religion of Islam and philosophy. So in philosophy class, we learned about the classical arguments for and against the existence of God, and then in classes about Islam, we learned about pre-Islamic Arabia. We learned about a man called Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We learned about what happened when he had his revelations and after his revelations. And when I went to these classes, I realised that I had very deep-set prejudices that I hadn't even been aware of Islam. And I realised I had never really, despite having such deep-set prejudices, I had never really analysed or reflected or thought about Islam properly. So I was a bit confused as to how I had come to these prejudices, but it's obviously socialisation and what you see in the media, and this is post 9/11, of course. And though I'd gone to school in East London with Muslims all my life, I'd never really thought about things like, why do Muslim women wear hijab? And I just thought, well, they're Muslim, and that's what they do. And apart from having a very basic understanding of Islam that we got from religious education classes at secondary school, 5 pillars and so on. I didn't really know much. So I started learning about this religion, and my perceptions were shattered, and I was very impressed. It made a lot of sense, it had a lot of credibility, there was a lot of beauty in it, there was a lot of truth in it, and I, against my own wishes, started to appreciate it. And I think there has been a time when I thought to myself, yeah, it's a nice religion, but there's no way I'm going to become Muslim. I vividly recall actually having a point like that. And the other thing is, of course, the rights of women. I just was very, very impressed. And one of the essays I wrote in that class was the role and responsibilities of women compared with Islam and Christianity, and I realised that there was lots of similarities between Muhammad and Jesus and what they came to do for women and the status of women. So I met a good friend as well who was a practicing Muslim. I was very impressed by her. She answered all my questions, and I shortly afterwards decided to become Muslim at the age of 17. I have been very blessed because my mother, being a very spiritual person and a very humble person, took my decision very well. She was happy that my child has a connection and a relationship with God, and she seems happy, and that was all that mattered for my mum. My brother, being a typical lefty liberal, each to his own, do what you want kind of attitude, he didn't mind too much. My wider family, so my mother only has one brother, and he was like, why does she want to join these terrorists? What's wrong with her? But to my face, he was just acted normal. My father's family, on the other hand, had massive issues with it. They consider Muslims to be inferior, to be dirty, to be uneducated, and they could not comprehend, and they wouldn't give me a chance to explain why I wanted to become a Muslim. So they were horrified and they were furious, and a lot of them cut me off, refused to come into our house, refused to be seen in public with me, stopped speaking to me, cut off financial assistance, and shouted, swore, got angry. One of them raised their hand to me. So that bit of it was upsetting, but my mum was very fiercely protective of me.
Did you wear hijab straight away?
I did. Firstly, I had to do this whole thing because my uncle used to drop us off to school. So I had to get in the car with my hood on of my coat, at the train station, change into the hijab, go to school, come back, reverse everything. And this is how I got caught, because someone saw me. One of my uncle's spies saw me and said, your niece is going around dressed like a Muslim. So he came round and he's like, what's going on? And you're abandoning the religion of your ancestors, and do you think we're all just sheep, blindly following? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think you're doing it. You've always done it, and you don't know any different.
You actually didn't tell your parents? You got caught, and that's.
I told my mum and my brother, but with everyone else, I kind of got caught. Yeah. But when you go through difficulties, I'm sure we've all been through this. You find out who really loves you, who's really loyal to you, who understands you, who knows you. So the people that kind of distance themselves, they didn't really matter. So that was a minor difficulty. But 3 years after me, after much discussion and debate, my mum also became Muslim. And it's actually much harder for her because, and she hasn't been caught out yet, it's much harder for her because it seems absurd to the community of that generation that a Muslim, a Hindu woman who's been a Hindu for 50 plus years would become a Muslim. It's just inconceivable. But she threw her idols out with her own hands, and she reads Quran and prays like a Muslim. She knows how to It's very cute listening to her say sort of Fatiha. Yeah, they also, my mum and my brother actually, I think, really liked me being a Muslim because they liked the hijab. My mum had always brought me up to dress modestly, and she thought it was a very beautiful, dignified, noble way for a lady to dress. So she didn't have a problem with it. My brother had always been very protective of me. So, I'd go out in, before I was Muslim, in normal clothes, and he'd be like, "Where are you going?" "Out." "You're not dressed like that, you're not." I'm wearing normal clothes. "No, go and put a coat on. It's summer. No, go and put a coat on." So when I started wearing hijab, he was relieved because he was like, "She's not going to get any harassment. No one wanted to take her, so I don't have to worry anymore." So they were very happy, and they could see that it had a positive impact on me, and it was making me very happy. 2 minutes, gosh, okay. I just want to mention, actually, since becoming a Muslim, I mentioned that I was very depressed after losing my father, that I kind of came to terms with that bereavement because of Islam. I started taking my life seriously. I wanted to do something worthwhile with my life, and because of what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says about the knowledge of the body, the knowledge of medicine and its importance, and also the verse in the Quran, whoever saves the life of one man, it is as if he has saved all of mankind. I thought, I really want to study medicine. I went on to go to medical school, and I became the first doctor in my family. And it's funny how, I don't know if you know how Sri Lankans are obsessed with medicine, but apparently becoming the first doctor in the family cancelled out the negative of being the first Muslim in the family. So it's all good now. So now they invite me to the family occasions and celebrations, and I've had apologies from them. They can see also, alhamdulillah, I married a lovely practicing Muslim man. And I'm one of the few. I'm the 9th of 18 grandchildren, and I am, happily married. I've got a nice job, settled down, and now all my aunties are, stressed about their children, and they can see that it's not brought me any. It's not had any adverse outcomes on my life. They have nothing to criticise or be concerned about, so they've accepted it now after 7, 8 years, but they've accepted it, so anything can happen with alhamdulillah. So, Christian, guide me. What do you want me to talk about now?
I need a chance to say something before the recording stops.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Both of you. Now our final speaker on the panel, Anissa Kisson, filmmaker and healer of Caribbean heritage. She reverted to Islam at the age of 15, has gone on to a wide range of pursuits, which included reviving the prophetic practice of hijama, cupping, establishing fitness programs for women, and utilizing theatre as an educational tool for the youth. However, her greatest passion is philanthropy. She has assisted her filmmaker daughter in a project highlighting poverty in parts of Africa. Please give a warm welcome to Anissa.
I don't know why, but I actually feel a bit nervous now. I'm speaking next to some of these lovely individuals. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. I'm going to give you a really quick, condensed version of my conversion, only because I want to get on to the more serious part. As Christiana said, I come from a West Indian background. Yes, it is very typical. We had Bob Marley in our studio. I was really fortunate. My mum's a dancer, my brother's a dancer, everybody's quite happy and jolly. I was very fortunate to be brought up in Balham as well. I don't know if anybody knows Balham, but Balham's quite posh. So we were brought up around Channel 4 filmmakers, and I was neighbours with the Redgraves. So I had a lot of entertainment and quite ethical people around me as well. I was around people who taught me about organics and eco-friendly products and biodegradable and everything. You know, so I came from quite a privileged but a very conscious life. Charity was already in my blood, and the reason why I'm saying all of this is because for some people their conversions kind of, or Islam teaches them how to be better, but I kind of had that, alhamdulillah, already installed into my life. Wasn't necessarily looking for religion. I think I was always a Muslim, as in I never believed that Jesus was God or son of God or part of God. So when my mum used to send me off to Sunday school, I used to always think, you know, this is not really correct, and that was at the age of 5. And then lo and behold, I stumbled upon Hyde Park Corner and heard people talking about how Muslims go to the toilet. And I thought, oh my God, that is so right. That is me. You know, they use water, and it was incredible. It was like a light bulb effect, and it was like, oh my God, I need to hear more about this. So that's it. Lo and behold, I, ended up that day running home to the closest Muslim friends that I knew and saying I want to become a Muslim. So that I can start using the toilet correctly. And that was it. That was literally it. Now, hence, what I said, that I came from a very lovely background. I really had a vibe. My whole career was a bit like Christiana. My whole career was mapped out for me. My brother was the first Black Kiss FM DJ. So I had everything. I had my agents, everything kind of set. And then all of a sudden, I come to Islam. And then what do I do? Because I can't dance anymore. And I've been told I can't act anymore. And I can't have my friends. And I can't have my family. And I can't do anything. Literally anything. So at the tender age of about, I was about 18. Oh, I'm going to give away my age now. Because I became Muslim when I was 15. And I've been Muslim for 20 years. Mashallah. But when I was 18 and after I had my first baby, my body froze and I became crippled like an old woman. And I went to my doctor and he said, oh, you've become a Muslim, haven't you? And I went, oh, okay, how do you know? And he said, because you've stopped moving. And it was true. And because my body, there was nothing available back then. There was no women-only gyms and women-only classes and everything. And because I'd come from such an active, as in sports and dancing, and then completely stopped, I was like, this is crazy. And I looked around and I saw all these women who were not only kind of putting on a lot of unnecessary weight, but also suffering from all sorts of joint problems and also. So I said, this is crazy. I said, why, the men have all this boxing, kickboxing and everything, and I hand wrote, because obviously back then there wasn't any, fancy computers and all that. So I hand wrote 100 letters to all the mosques that already had sports facilities for men. And I said, our women are suffering. And they said, one replied back and said, oh, thank you very much for your letters and stuff. The rest of them didn't even acknowledge.